Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are. Thank you for joining me again for another live Q&A session here on my channel. And if you're new here, welcome. My name is Angela. I am a full-time voiceover artist and audiobook narrator, and my channel is dedicated to those of you just getting started out in this wonderful world of voiceover and audiobook narration. And through my channel, I share with you tips, tricks, techniques, things that I do every day in my own voiceover business. And then we get together in these weekly chats to have a conversation about a topic or two, sometimes five. We'll see how it goes. But anywho, if you're not new here, then you know every week we have a poll, and that is generally the topic of the day. But again, we'll see how it goes. And today's poll is, where do you have the most trouble with like audition scripts? And I ask this question because it's something that we don't really talk enough about, I guess. Um, because it's it's kind of important. We talk about marketing ourselves all the time, and auditioning is it's a form of marketing, right? It's sort of throwing your voice out into the void, maybe not the void, but to a client or two, and seeing what comes back. But then sometimes those clients will say, "You're not right for this particular project that you auditioned for. However, I think your voice would be great for something else." So it's a form of marketing, right? Um, sort of like, no, I guess it wouldn't be squirrel. But anyway, um, so far we have about 23 votes, and it looks like the majority of you said you're fighting with finding the proper tone or pace for an audition script. 12% of you are worried about being scammed, and that's totally understandable. 24% of you said, how much do I record of an audition? We could definitely talk about that. And then 24% of you said, you didn't say that. You said technical requests. Also understandable. Um, but understanding the technical requests can sometimes, or notes or any other information that the client has provided to you, can help you determine the proper tone and pace. So, understanding and reading through very carefully the technical requests can answer a lot of those questions for you, but we don't always get them. We don't always get, this is our target demographic, this is the tone we're looking for. Who are you as the narrator? Like, who are you supposed to be as the narrator? Um, or a voice artist, however you want to say it. Um, we don't get that all the time. And sometimes we just get a script and you're meant to sort of just figure it out, right? They'll give you perhaps an age range and you sort of just have to figure out where this is going or who it's going to, what the purpose of the script is, all on your own. And that is where you really need to take the time to do the work in interpretation, to read it to yourself a couple times, perhaps out loud a couple times, and then try to get a good understanding of who you're talking to, who you are, and why you're saying what you're saying. I think in those instances when it's not quite clear and the client hasn't given you any clear direction, you could do one of two things. You could either ask the client, right? If they're shooting for a specific demographic of people, you can ask them these questions, right? Who are you supposed to be as the narrator, and what is the purpose, or how is this being used? You could ask those questions. But sometimes we don't have the ability to just message a client without submitting a complete bid or audition, or we don't have the luxury of asking questions before we audition. So more often than not, you're left to just sort of shoot your shot. So that's what you do. And if you want to, you could even do a couple of takes. If it's a shorter script, perhaps maybe it reads like a commercial or it's promoting something, selling something, right? Some sort of a call to action, but it feels like it could go one of two different ways in terms of pace or tone, then do it twice, right? Give them the alternate takes of that script. But in the beginning, at the very start of the recording, make sure that you state, this is take one of two. And then once you get to the second take, the second alternate recording, this is take two of two. If you say that in the beginning of the recording, whomever's listening knows that there is an alternate take, because you have to remember that our clients are only going to listen for the first few seconds to see if you're the voice they're looking for. They're not going to sit and go, oh, this is a 6-minute audition. I have all the time in the world to sit and listen to all 6 minutes of all 200 auditions that I have to listen through, right? It's kind of a big ask. But if you tell them in the beginning, they can at least go, okay, well, listen to the first few seconds of the first take and then, skip to the second one if they wanted to. So keep that in mind, that they're not listening through the entire audition, just usually the first few seconds, right? In terms of how much do I record, I think this question, I could see this mainly being for perhaps audiobook auditions, because most of the time when a client gives you an audition for something else, it's usually just a small snippet, right? Because they don't want to have to listen through 12 minutes of audition, like I said before. So they'll usually just give you a snippet. But for audiobooks, it could be that the author perhaps doesn't know how to slice out a snippet of the book and they give you an entire chapter. Maybe they provide the entire book, the entire manuscript as part of the audition process, or, uploaded. That's what they uploaded, was the whole manuscript. And it could be, obviously, they don't want you to record the entire book, but it could be, here, skim it over and see if this is something you're comfortable with, or I just don't know how to slice out a snippet of this book. Either way, it doesn't mean you have to read the entire thing. Same thing with a chapter. Maybe they sent you 10 pages of a chapter. You don't have to narrate the entire thing. I think for audiobooks, auditions of perhaps 2-3 minutes max is sufficient, right? Just enough for them to get an idea of your narration style, the way that you sound, perhaps the way that you handle character work. And sometimes authors will do that too. They'll give you specific sections of the book to see how you handle that scene, that emotion, right? How you handle different character voices, things of that nature. But it kind of depends on what they give you, and then just use your best interpretation of what it is that they're looking for. But you don't have to read the entire thing. There was something else hanging out on my periphery that I wanted to mention. Maybe it'll come back to me. But of course, as always, if you have questions about anything, even if it doesn't pertain to audition scripts, as we're talking about today, then please feel free to ask in the chat. That's why we get together every week, to get some questions answered for you, because as we always say, we don't want you to sit idle and not move forward in this endeavor. So if you have a question of something that's keeping you hung up and it's not audition script related, please put it in the chat. We'll address your question, of course. And I say we because it's not just my opinion, it's everybody in the chat too. This is a community chat. So, what I did want to show you, I wanted to show you a sample script for those of you that perhaps want to practice with voiceover scripts. I guess there are commercial, there's all kinds. But if you go to voices.com, it's one of the casting websites that we go to find work for voiceover contracts. They also have a resources section. And there's a handful of these websites that do this, but there is a resource section that has practice scripts. They do say, and I believe all of them do, that provide practice scripts, that you cannot and should not use these practice scripts as demo material. So if you're looking to make a demo, your first demo, and you don't have any copy to record your first demo, don't use practice scripts. Not only is because they tell you not to and that you're not allowed to, but also casting directors, people of that nature have heard these scripts time and time and time again. It's a major red flag to indicate that you have no work under your belt. You're brand new, right? So you don't want to set that impression. If you do need copy for your demo script, I would suggest going to ChatGPT, type in a prompt of how many words. Commercials are generally about a minute long, and there's about 150 words of narration roughly within a minute. So you could tell ChatGPT to write you a script of, let's just say, even 125 words or less of some fictitious business for a commercial read, something like that. And then use that as the bones of your copy. You could even change it up a little bit, change the names, change the wording, whatever you want to do. I mean, easy peasy. I think I just derailed myself. But ChatGPT is a good place to start. But if you're looking for practice scripts, as we were mentioning before about technical requests, pace, tone, if you go to voices.com, and I have it up here, they have tons of practice scripts. And these are just the commercial reads. These are just for radio and TV, but they have tons of these. And this is the very, very top section of the script. The entire script is right there, but this is what we're calling the technical requests, is usually up at the top. And this is where they'll tell you what gender they're looking for. Some will tell you that they're looking for a female voice or a male voice, or either or open to whatever. They'll tell you how long the commercial is, which is a great thing to practice, because if you're on the slower narration side, you had to remember that if this read is supposed to be within 30 seconds or less, and I would always shoot for less than 30 seconds, all of this has to fit within that 30 seconds. So these are great to practice with for that reason alone. But they'll also tell you the target demographic, right? In this case, it's parents with elementary and high school aged kids. And as you know, you're not going to talk to parents in the same tone or way as you would a group of surgeons, perhaps, right? Or a group of real estate agents. You're going to have a different approach to that kind of conversation, right? Who you are as the narrator, you are a tutor, teacher, or an educator, so knowledgeable, right? The vocal direction is tactful, considerate, encouraging, and they'll even tell you what the music could be in the background, which also could help you discover the tone. So if you could think of something calming, smooth, instrumental in the background as you're talking to a group of parents, that'll help you sort of set the tone and pace, right? And then they even go as far as putting in suggested sound effects. So you could really get a good visual of what this commercial is going to look and feel like. And that will really help you to determine the proper tone. So these are great to practice with for that reason. And of course, there are tons of these. So this one is male 30 seconds. You're talking to Generation X baby boomers. You are a dad, a middle-aged dad, right? And there are tons of these. Let's see. This one's male or female. Target demographic is students and out-of-control credit card owners. That's probably all of us, right? You are the town crier, or like an announcer sort of a voice. Over the top air of desperation with timely relief. These are quite fun to practice with. We actually use these in my platinum group. We have a handful of times, and they're very useful to practice with, especially for the length, right? The amount of time that they have to fit into. So these are great to practice with. But to go back and address a comment I saw just as right before we got started about sort of second guessing yourself. I think that was Glowen I saw. Second guessing yourself when you're recording an audition and then you just scrap it all together because you just feel like you didn't hit the mark. I would say just send in what you have. If there are no time parameters like we were just going over with those commercial scripts, if they're just looking for you to narrate the snippet, maybe they didn't give you a whole lot of direction, but you recorded what you felt was right. And usually the first take is usually the right take, right? Your first instincts in what this should feel or sound like, send that in. Even if you listen back to it and you start to nitpick it to death, just don't even go back and listen to it. Just edit it, right? Make sure that there's no, extreme mouth clicks or take out the breaths and take out the retakes and that kind of thing. Just clean it up and then send it and be done. Don't second guess yourself to death and then just not submit an audition at all. Just send in what you sent or what you recorded. Just do it. Just do it. All right, let's move on to the comments and see if you guys have any questions about anything that I just went over. Oh, that was another thing I wanted to touch on. I think that was the thing in my periphery that was waving at me. As far as how do you know you're not being scammed? I think mainly with the whole AI thing and the fear of having your voice stolen or used for text to speech in a way that you're not permitting, or maybe they just keep in mind that anytime you make yourself available online or your voice is available, that could happen without your permission. It's just kind of the world we're living in today. But if you receive a script that has just sort of lists of just random words or phrases or just kind of nonsense, and it's not obviously for like language learning or educational for children, if it just seems very strange, if your intuition is telling you this is weird, this doesn't make any sense, then listen to that and skip it. Because what are they going to do with it? Your instincts are probably telling you not you don't want your voice involved with that, whatever it is. When it comes to audiobooks, the biggest red flag that I see is if the audition script is the back matter, and that's all it is, meaning it is, when you go to the bookstore and you pick up a book and then you flip over to the back and you start to read the back, that's where all of the information, sort of a snapshot of what this book is about, right? Maybe it talks about the author, maybe it talks about, other books in this series, so on and so forth. If the audition script is just back matter or something that could read like an advertisement or a marketing tool, then I would not read all of it. Read a portion of it, half of it, the middle of it, the end of it, not the entire thing. Because, I would love to think that everybody is trustworthy. I would love to believe that maybe someone just had the bright idea just to throw that in there because it was the easiest thing to cut and they had no nefarious plans for the usage of all of those auditions. But it's very probable that they could take one of your auditions with all of that back matter and then use it on social media without your permission. It's totally plausible. So if I have something like that looks like it's the script in the entirety, and it could be used for marketing purposes in some way, shape, or form, unless it's for like a major casting site, like voices.com, Voice123, like if it's ACX or Fiverr, Upwork, something like that, I won't read the entire thing. I'll leave some sections out, just so it's not the entire thing that they wanted, right? So it makes it harder to use, essentially. Or the other thing you could do with ACX, if you have something like that, is to go to the listing in Amazon for the book. And there's usually like a look inside option where you can look inside the book, and there's usually a few pages available to you to kind of read through a portion of it. Go into the book that way, pick a section, and use that as your audition. if recording the back matter makes you feel weird. Excuse me. I've done that before. I've done that a couple times instead of reading the script that could be used for marketing purposes. Anyway, let's open the door. It's getting hot in here. Getting dry. All right, let's go over to the comments. Got lots of comments. Who was first? I think it was Glowen. Glowen was in first. Hey, Glowen. Good morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Good evening if Caesar is in today. Hope your coffee is hot and you're having a great day. It's not quite room temperature, but it's not cold either. It's okay, but it's still coffee. Glowen says, I struggle with tone and pace. So many auditions I've practiced to get it right, yet I listen back and think, damn, race through that, or wow, that was dry, or too light, or too authoritative. I have missed the opportunity to submit many auditions because of this. I don't have a great deal of time in this world because of my full-time job, yet I want this to become at least a part-time job. Then I would say, Glowen, stop second-guessing yourself and send those in. Don't allow yourself the opportunity to overthink. Record it, clean it up, send it in. Because it could also happen that the client receives your audition and they go, oh my God, that's the perfect voice for this project. It's a little bit on the slow side, but I'm sure I could reach out to him and tell him just to speed it up a little bit. Right? Your audition doesn't have to be perfectly suited to exactly what they're asking for in the audition. I mean, ultimately, again, all it comes down to are you the right voice for this project? They're not going to use your audition as the final project more often than not. I mean, sometimes we nail it on the audition and they just buy that and use that. I mean, it does happen that way too. But for the most part, if you're the right voice, they'll say, hey, you're the guy. You're the voice I want. However, I want you to redo it just a little bit faster or a little bit slower or a little bit more nurturing sounding or a little bit more authoritative, whatever it is. So don't second guess yourself. Just record it, clean it up a bit, and send it in. Don't let all those opportunities pass you by because you're overthinking, right? David says, hello, Angela from Hamilton, Ontario. Hello, David. Good morning. Anne's here. Hey, Anne. Good morning to you. The Cup of Tea says, morning, y'all. Hope all is well. Rustic Hillbilly is here. I hope everyone is enjoying a beautiful day. It should be a beautiful day here. I think it was going to be like in the 80s today. Still too early for that noise. I mean, almost 90 here in Phoenix. Emmy is here. So happy to have caught this live. We're so happy that you did too. We're happy that you're here. Jim is here. Good morning, Jim. Old Dog New Trick says hello all. Hello to you. Paul. Good morning, Paul. Good day all from Dunmow, UK. Reading Time with Poppy says hello, everybody. Listening back to my recordings is painful sometimes in terms of performance, but I'm getting better, pretty sure. I don't know if that cringe ever goes away, to be honest. I still feel kind of oogie listening to myself, for sure. But, I mean, you do sort of kind of get used to it. But I remember in the beginning, especially, I was just like, ugh, I can't listen to my voice. It's just cringy. But I think it does fade, but it doesn't really completely ever go away. So, but it is part of the job. Anne says, it is hard knowing what the client wants. I mean, aside from reaching out to them and asking them specific questions. I mean, even if they answered all of your questions beautifully, articulately, everything was just perfect, and you thought you had a great understanding of what it is they wanted, and you sent that to them and they go, no, 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 this is all wrong. Have you change it again. And then maybe after 2 more takes, they go, okay, let's go back to this. And, it's exactly like your very first take. And they go, it's perfect. I mean, I don't even know. But this is where your customer service hat needs to be on the top of your head. And you need to be flexible, patient. Remember that they're people too. Maybe they got a lot going on. They're juggling several things and trying to communicate to you exactly how you need to be communicated to isn't always going to come through perfectly, right? Remember, we're dealing with people that are a lot like you. They have a lot on their plate. They got a lot going on. Maybe everything's last minute. Maybe they're being micromanaged. I mean, we all know what that's like. So exercise a little bit of patience. Try to have, ask questions. Be polite, understanding, and just know that eventually you will both come to this understanding and find something that works. I mean, even what they initially thought they wanted isn't what the end result will be either. Maybe you guys will find something else that's even better, So it's tough. Knowing what the client wants and balancing that with your voice is your voice, and it may not be what they're looking for. You don't really know. So that's another reason to just do the audition and send it in and then just see what happens. Because maybe even what they initially wanted is now how you sent it in. Maybe you gave them a new idea with your audition. And it's now what you did is what they want. You never know. Jim says, even with filters, I still throw out auditions because of a slurred word, wrong word. Well, Jim, retake it then. I mean, edit it. Fix it. But don't throw out your audition, silly rabbit. Corey J. VO Artist says, is Isotope RX11 standard worth the purchase for Mouth Declick and other plugins? Yes. Yes. I would say that singular plugin, I mean, it's a shame that, it's smart on Isotope's part, but it's a shame that they don't sell them individually because, that one plugin is worth the price of the entire package. Because keep in mind, it's going to be used on every audition, every job, every book, every single thing that you record. It'll more than pay for itself very quickly, probably a few times over. I know mine has. Tanya's here, even and all. I've had a few follow-up audition requests and a few requests for quite a long section of script, usually to show different things, such as being comfortable with spice or character work, and that's understandable. Because not all narrators are, especially when we go into scripts that have explicit language or spicy content or, even situations that are a little bit taboo or, maybe not for public consumption, NSFW kind of stuff. So some clients understand that not all narrators are comfortable with that. So they will sometimes even ask you up front and say, hey, this is kind of what the language that's in it. Are you comfortable with that? Before they even send you the script. Sometimes they'll send you the script, much like Tanya said, and with little bits of maybe the spiciest parts, or you know what I mean, just to see if that way you get an idea of what they're asking of you and if you're comfortable with it. And if you are, how do you handle it? How does it sound? So that's understandable when they do that. And I appreciate when they do that. Because there's nothing worse than them saying, oh, yeah, it's like vanilla romance. There's, it's fine. And then they send you the manuscript after you've said, yep, let's do it. You've collected the 50%. I would hope that you have seen the manuscript before you went any further with any book. But Sometimes things just happen, but then anyway, so the job is started and then you get the script and it's just you're completely uncomfortable with it and then you have to cancel it or whatever. There's nothing worse than that. My cup of tea says, to comment on my response, I've been told that I need to slow down. I've carried my day job, which requires quick calls and responses, into my recording. Now I do more breathing warm-ups in the booth. Yeah, I could totally see that too. Especially if you have a full-time day job or just a day job that requires you to, get through things quickly and you're used to talking fast. You would definitely have to do a little bit of a cool down session prior to jumping into the booth for auditions. Do a little woo-saw session, meditate, anything to slow you down. That would be hard. But at least that you're aware of it. You're aware of doing that. It's unfortunate that clients had to tell you that, but at least now you know. And then you're actively working towards slowing yourself down. So for that, you should congratulate yourself. Because acknowledging bad habits is sometimes hard for people. I mean, it's hard for me. But knowing that it's there, then you can start to address it. Lisa says, to Corey J, VO artist, I have been wondering that also. About the mouth declick. I would say, yeah. And keep in mind, Isotope has sales all the time. And also sweetwater.com, the website that has a lot of audio gear and equipment, they also sell plugins. And every once in a while, they'll have a pretty good deal on the Isotope RX11 as well. So it's worth checking both sites periodically, sweetwater.com and then isotope.com, IZOTOPE. IZOTOPE. Did I spell it right? I believe so. .com. And just check and see if they have a sale. I think there's a way to even sign up for a newsletter. I know you don't want more emails. I get it. But if you get notified when they're having a sale, it might just be worth it, and then unsubscribe. Anne says, to Corey J, Isotope mouth declick is amazing. Any of us that have it rave about it. So for me, yes, it's worth it. I would agree. I would concur. Masonry Construction says, auditioning, don't hold back. Emote, pause, speed up, pour on whatever your strengths are for this piece. If it's through ACX, don't ask questions. No time. The job might be awarded today. I was talking with somebody. I don't even know what today is. Today's Tuesday. I don't know. It was yesterday or sometime late last week. About finding auditions, and I think this was through ACX, but finding auditions and then just sort of earmarking them, noting them, and then coming back to them later. Don't do that. They might not be there by the time you get around to auditioning. So I would say if your intention when you get into the studio and your intention is to audition or to look for auditions, be ready to audition, because you might find something that is perfectly for you that you need to audition for right now. You're seeing it right now, audition for it right now. Don't save it and come back later. It's very likely it won't be there. It'll be given to someone else by the time you get back to it. So when you're in the studio looking at auditions, be ready to audition. Glowen says, to Corey J, I recently subscribed for it versus purchase. It's expensive. My opinion is yes, but I'm still in the playing with it to set it up mode. For the mouth declick, if you're one of those people, much like myself, who just have, I guess, a noisy mouth, I don't know how else to put it. I've tried, y'all know I drink a ton of water. I always have water in here. I've tried the green apples. I've tried brushing your teeth all throughout the narration process. I've tried everything. And the only thing that has worked for me is fixing the mouth clicks in post. And instead of spending all the time to brush them all out, with a little magic eraser in Adobe Audition to brush them all out individually, that singular plugin has cut my editing down by like 80%. And I say that all the time. It saved me so much time, especially if you're into audiobooks. You use that on every file, every audition, everything that you do, every recording. It'll save you so much time. So definitely worth it. Lisa says to Glowin, how do you do that? I have not found the option to just subscribe, only found the purchase option. Is that on Glowin? Is that on isotope.com also, or was that somewhere else that you found the subscription option? Old Dog New Trick says, very new here, only 5 auditions in. Good for you. Good for you. How do you decide how much to emote, change your voice tone, pace for different characters without doing too much going overboard? That's a great question because typically when we think of characters, we sort of revert back to our, the days of being young when someone's reading a storybook to us and then the characters become caricatures, right? They're on the extreme side because that's kind of how we relate characters, is like with children's books, children's characters, cartoon characters. So we get a little bit extreme with different character voices. In terms of how much to emote or change your voice tone pace, think of the different characters as an individual person. They all have their own personality, their own energy, their own quirks. If you can really, I'm assuming this is for an audiobook, but if you're taking notes, once you have the manuscript and you're reading through it and you're taking notes on each character, it sort of becomes clearer and clearer that this character is, a whole person, and this is everything about them. Their background, how they walk, how they move, how they view the world. Are they in love with this person? Do they hate this person? And then you just kind of become them. It's more about personality and who they are versus like giving them an extreme shift in pitch, or you know what I mean? I'm having like several thoughts race into my head at one time. You could even just very subtly change their character voices by, one speaks in sort of a melody. Think like Morgan Freeman, Christopher Walken. They have sort of like a rhythm or a melody, like a pattern when they talk. Or one could be a little bit just faster speaking. One could be just really sort of like, they're deep in contemplation when they're talking. Like they always sound like they're deep in thought when they're talking. Maybe one has a little bit of a airy sound, one's a little bit more nasally. There's a lot of just little subtle ways that you can change a character to make them sound different. I always recommend listening to Jurassic Park, narrated by Scott Brick, for this respect. He's great at differentiating characters, but in a very subtle way that you could still completely follow along with, who's talking without having to go to extremes in changing the character's voice. But also working with the author is another thing you could do too. If you have like character voices in mind for different characters, but you're not quite sure if they're right, get with the author and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking for character XYZ and then character ABC. What do you think? Get some input. It's a team effort. So make it a team effort. Glowin says to Lisa, when it takes you to the new owner page, there is an option for monthly subscription. Beautiful. Paul says, regarding how long should an audiobook audition be? ACX actually says somewhere deep in their help files, max 5 minutes, but in reality, most rights holders will never listen to this much. Yeah, they're going to know within the first few seconds. I think for audiobooks, 2 to 3 minutes max is probably sufficient, just long enough to hear how you handle pauses, transition character voices if there are any in that section, dramatic pauses. I mean, whatever. I mean, obviously it's going to depend on the section that you're narrating, but 2 to 3 minutes max, I think is sufficient for audiobooks. For sure. Lisa says, sorry, Angela, we're way off topic today. Anyway, my issue is tone for audition scripts. I don't think we're off topic. I think we're okay. In terms of tone, if there is no tone stated, I mean, if you have a script like we looked at together from voices.com, it'll tell you what kind of tone they're looking for. But if you don't have any direction at all, then I would just say go with your gut. When you're reading through a script and it's reading like an ASPCA commercial where, there's sad cats and dogs and kennels and, they're asking for donations, you're not going to read it like a car salesman, right? You're going to read it a little bit slower, more thoughtful, empathetic, it's compassionate, right? Or on the flip side, if it's reading like it's urgent, it's fast, you got to come down here and buy this whatever because it's on sale right now, only 48 hours, you're not going to read it like the ASPCA commercial, right? So, just kind of use your gut. What does it feel like? And again, always, if in doubt, and if you can, ask the client. Let's just say it's a situation where someone had, like let's just say Fiverr, where you can just place an order, where a client doesn't communicate with you at all. They place an order, they give you a script. You're not quite clear on what kind of tone they're looking for. And perhaps you asked them what they were looking for, but they couldn't quite articulate it. You could always ask for like a reference. Was there something else that you are using, or something else? Is there like an example that you can give me? More often than not, they'll send you like a link to a YouTube video that has the sort of pace and tone they're looking for. Or maybe they're building a video that already has like a Scratch AI voice on it, and they'll send that to you and you get an idea of the pace and tone and the background music and all that stuff. But asking for references, like video references, audio references, will definitely help. You can at least go, okay, and then you can sort of mimic it, right? That helps too. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help to give them what they need. If you just want to do your job and you want to do it to the best of your ability, ask them to help you do that. Maybe you're stuck on it. It's not going to make you unprofessional. If anything, it's going to make you look even more professional. Because you want to do it right. You want to give them what they're asking for. So ask for help. Ask for clarity. Ask for, verify. Whatever. Do it. Masonry Construction says there are hundreds of new scripts available every day on ACX. Record your audition and save it to your computer. Upload the edited file from your computer into ACX. Glowin, smiling. Jim Williams says, practice scripts cannot be used for samples. No. So where do I get scripts I can use in my samples? ChatGPT, or write your own. If you're in my Platinum group, which you are, Jim, you can go to our resources tab on my website, and that'll take you to our group script folder. And in that folder, I have scripts that you can use for your demos and samples. PSV Odyssey says, howdy, 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 brought the donuts. Are those like, I know those look like little wine goblets, but can we call those mimosas? Tangulants. I miss those. I need to find time to come in for these more often. I did have a couple of those, didn't I? Tangulants. Reading Time with Poppy says, my favorite practice is copying radio, TV, YouTube, etc. commercials. If it's one I've heard before, I start to talk over them with different tones. If nothing else, it's fun. Yeah. anything could be practice. Anything could be, I mean, as silly as it sounds, if you're at the grocery store, and there's not a ton of people around you, read the box. Well, whatever you're looking at in the aisle. You're in the shower, shampooing your hair, read the bottle. I mean, just practice. Practice. You might surprise yourself. You're like, oh, that sounded pretty good. Ron Knoll says, hello from Grand Haven, Michigan, aka Coast Guard City, USA. Welcome, Ron. Masonry Construction says, continuing, it's, in my opinion, fair use. You will have more audition samples than you will ever need. If we're talking about ACX, yes. Mm-hmm. Nikki, NZVO, Nikki says ACX has pretty straightforward quality submission standards. When auditioning on voices, are we also mastering, or are we ideally sending completely raw records? Great question, Nikki. I'm glad you brought that up, because this ties into technical requests. Another reason why it's very important to make sure that if there are notes, direction, anything other than the script itself included with the script, make sure that you read through that and understand what they're asking for. Because sometimes they will ask you for a specific sample rate. Sometimes they'll ask you for a specific bit depth. Sometimes they'll ask you for a specific noise floor. Sometimes they'll ask you to not to compress. Sometimes they'll ask you to send it in completely raw. Sometimes they'll ask you to send it in as an MP3 and nothing else, and you send it in as a wave. They won't even open it. So making sure that you're following all of those technical requests is imperative, because if they see that your file is not the way that they asked for it to be, they won't even listen to it. Yours is going into the circular file, So make sure that you're reading and understanding the technical requests before you start recording. They will tell you if they want it raw or some other specific way. But to answer your question, Nikki, I send them all in completely edited, mastered, like broadcast ready, normalized to -3 dB. But I keep it as a wave. I always send them in as a wave file unless they ask for MP3. Jim says, your gut comes from your experience. Go with it. Exactly. Janelle is here. Hey, Janelle. Hey, Angela. Hey, everyone. I'm late, so brought donuts, croissants, and muffins. I'm always leery of being scammed. Understandable and justifiable. I mean, we take that risk really every day, all day. You just got to have the smarts to know what to look for, right? Sometimes my research on the RH takes longer than my audition, and that's a good thing to do. If your spidey senses are tingling, then do some research. I had somebody reach out to me this weekend and told me about a Craigslist job that they found. It was really too good to be true. And we looked up the company and it looked legit, but some of it just didn't jive. Some of it didn't mesh. So, I mean, it was kind of red flag. And I think in the end, she decided to go against it. And I mean, to me, with as good as it sounded, as professional as it sounded, and as high profile as it sounded, my biggest red flag was, why was it on Craigslist? And not on voices.com, some other high profile voiceover casting site. Why was it on Craigslist? And that was the biggest red flag, I think, for me. So, I mean, common sense, use your intuition. Paul says to Jim Williams, what I've done is take these kind of practice scripts, but rewrite to change it and that it's not the same. But that's quicker than writing your own from scratch. Dylan said, could you, I think you could even like take a practice script, put it into ChatGPT and ask it to rewrite it. So it's the same kind of idea. Could you do, I don't know. Could you even do that? Dylan said, good morning, all. Another book up for purchase today. On to the next one. Good for you, Dylan. Good for you. Tanya said, I just had a very sad author message me to thank me for auditioning, but tell me he was giving up looking for a narrator because he wanted a longer audition and VOs were scared of AI scams. To tell you the truth, Tanya, in almost, 7 years, a little over 7 years, that's the first time I've heard of an author wanting a longer audition. Glowin says to Dylan, congrats, sir. Well done. Yep. Happy launch day. Joy says, hello, everyone from chilly yet sunny Southfield, Michigan. Most of the time, I get potential clients who want large script samples. The reason is larger samples gives them a better feel, which is exactly why I say 2 to 3 minutes is probably sufficient. If I would think that if they discovered listening to your sample, if they go, okay, that's the voice we're looking for. I mean, I've never heard that. I've never heard of an author saying, I want a larger audition. Not once until today, where you guys have said it twice. I mean, you could always record more or a different section or, you know what I mean? I think what it might come down to is I love hearing my words coming out of this beautiful voice artist's mouth. You know? I don't know. That's kind of where my head goes, but I'm a little bit cynical. No. Tanya says, Dylan voiceover, yay! Jim says, we are in the 70s, but cautiously comfortable. April is a blackberry month around here. Dylan says, thanks all, I appreciate you, as Angela says. I appreciate you. Jim says, I'm just audacious enough to go for it. I think I have an agreeable enough voice, even if I don't like the sound of it. Old Dog New Trick says, I've just agreed to narrate, produce, and audiobooks for my first time. Congratulations. I'm excited, but also pretty nervous. Understandable. Was everyone else nervous on your first book? Yes, terrified. I don't think nervous was enough. I was excited, intimidated, terrified. But I jumped in and I got it done. And the confidence I felt afterward, knowing that I could do it and I can do it again and again and again and again, was just enough to keep me moving forward. How do you keep the nerves from showing? The only person who's going to see the nerves is you. You know? I would say do what you can to keep yourself focused on the task at hand. Telling a good story. Keep it engaging. Make sure the characters are alive, right? Don't listen to all the little voices in your head going, you need to speed up. You need to slow down. You need to do this. You need to do that. Watch out for that breath. I mean, you can fix almost anything in post when you're editing. So focus on the story. Leave all the other nonsense outside the studio. I know it's cliche, but it does help. Just sort of think all the thoughts and then leave them at the door. Sit down, book, story, engaging, characters, world building, whatever it is. Try to focus all you can on just the book. Nikki says, gentle reminder to like the vid for Angela. Thank you. Yes, please hit that like and subscribe button if you're watching in Team Replay. I appreciate you. Anne says, "Ha, I haven't had that much feedback from a client. I've been on the audiobook side. Where are you sending your audition out to either and waiting? To the ether and waiting." And that's generally how it goes. You're just throwing your audition out there and just see what happens, you know? It's very rare anymore or at all to get or even expect feedback from a client. Because again, you have to remember that they have 20, 50, 100, 200 auditions that were submitted. They don't have the time, nor are they obligated to sit down and give everybody feedback as to why they weren't chosen. That's way too much of an ask. You can't expect that. But every once in a while, you'll have a client that perhaps you were in the top 5 and they wanted to give you feedback as to why you weren't chosen, but you were in the top 5. I've had that happen. But most of the time, you just have to go with your gut and send it in and then just see what happens. Hope for the best. Jim says, "I just put RX11 in last week. $20 a month is manageable." Yeah. I mean, it's not bad. I mean, considering how much you're going to use the plugin, it's well worth that. Joy says, "Congratulations, Dylan." Yes. Katya says, "Hi, Angela, waving. Thanks for your question regarding isotope." See, no dumb questions. Everybody asks a question that's in your head because you never know if somebody else is asking the same question, but maybe a little bit too scared to. Tanya said, "Current rights holder said he preferred the way I pronounced some of his words and would tell people he wanted it that way in the first place." Yes, but you have a beautiful voice. So I could see somebody saying that for sure. Tall Latin mama. What's up, girl? Arriving late, brought donuts and highly leaded coffee, soaking in the wisdom. I hope you brought enough coffee to share. Masonry Construction says to Jim, "Please don't throw out an audition because of some misspoken words. Edit it and submit it. I find Descript is ideal for editing auditions, just like editing a Word doc. Free version." Katya says, "Does it matter what time of day you audition?" Nope. It's basically whatever or whenever you feel that you sound the best. If you generally sound a little bit raspy, groggy in the morning, it's probably not a good good time to record. Or late at night when you're just so tired and maybe your voice is worn out, maybe that's not a good time to record. I would say whenever you have a window where your voice sounds mostly normal and consistent sounding, that you can get into the studio, those would be the blocks of time that I would try to set aside for yourself to get some recording in, even if it's only a couple of hours. Maybe if it's even an hour, a half an hour. It's gonna depend from person to person, but usually late morning for me, like right around now when I've gotten all of the grogginess out, when I'm warmed up. Wondering if authors find it off-putting to see a submission coming through at a very late hour. No. Not at all. I don't think they would even pay too much attention to when it was submitted, as long as it's submitted before the deadline. And if you're the right price and you're the right voice, I think that's all they really care about. Not at all. Jim says, "Different topic. Who uses throat coat lozenges? I just got a bag and wonder how well they work." Throat coat lozenges. I didn't even know there were throat coat lozenges. Is that the same company that made the tea? The throat coat tea? If yes, then I'm going to have to go and check it out. Inquiring minds want to know. Kristen says, "Good morning. I'm popping in late, so I've brought chocolate-covered buttermilk chocolate eclairs. Those are like my kryptonite. I hope everyone's week is off to a good start." Yes, ma'am. Joy says, "I like clients who are nice enough to send the VO the script first and would alert the VO first if there are issues with language or rated R situations. I don't like surprises like that." Yes, and I find that most clients do. I think they don't also want to spend time building rapport or negotiating rates and all of the stuff without knowing that the voice artist is even going to be comfortable with narrating what they've got. So they'll usually reach out first and say, "Hey, I have a script that's got some explicit language or scenarios or whatever in it. Are you comfortable with that?" And if you say yes, then they go into rates, terms, all that stuff. So I find that most people do that, in my experience anyway. Jim says, in Isotopes, the subscription tab is toward the top of the screen. Glowen said, work is calling me back. I guess lunch break is over. Ciao, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Have a great day at work. Thanks for stopping in. Old Dog New Trick says, thank you so much for your advice. Really appreciate it. It's my pleasure. Slacker Dan says, hi, Angela. I use Audacity to record. Are there any resources that can help me find the best microphone presets, equalization to bring the best sound for my voice? Thank you. Dan, because there are so many variables from studio to studio, from person to person, from voice to voice, from setup to setup, from equipment to equipment, room size to room size, there are too many variables to give anyone sort of like a set it and forget it kind of preset. Every single preset rack, every single like setting on, I mean, because there could be some effects that someone recommends that you don't even need. Maybe you need something different and at a different setting, right? I mean, it's very personalized. So you can't just go, okay, you have Audacity, you have this microphone, okay, use this, that. You just can't. There's just too many variables. So my recommendation for you is to either join a group that's got some technical know-how, some technical gurus in it, audio engineers, stuff like people that have an attuned ear that know your DAW and the effects that are compatible with it, and ones that'll work for your voice and your situation and your hardware and your software and all of the things, or hire an audio engineer to do a booth audit with you, to go through your specific situation and place and to give you presets designed specifically for your situation and spot, recording space. There really isn't an easy button for that part at all. There's just too many variables. Masonry Construction says, on ACX auditions, don't overthink it. Most ACX auditions are for self-published books, not Broadway or Hollywood or TV productions. Exactly. Do your best. That's all. Don't worry. Be happy. Who just got that song stuck in their head? Thank you for that. KJC says, a practice exercise could be a tongue twister said with a different emotion. Mad, happy, sad, thoughtful, spicy, etc. Yeah, tongue twisters are good. Tongue twisters are great for warming up, for sure. If you don't know any tongue twisters, I mean, you could have ChatGPT write you some. You can find some on the internet. I mean, we have access to a ton more information than we ever did, even just 20 years ago, 15 years ago. So use that stuff. It's at your fingertips and it's free. Jim says, to Slacker Dan, I use an MLX 990 condenser mic, which I got from Sweetwater. It does need a phantom power source. Most microphones do, which a lot of mics do. Use with condenser or shotgun, not dynamic. Dynamic is for singing. All right, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but some mics are better suited for voiceover. But I think it just comes down to what sounds good for you. Gregory says, I'm beginning to think that cereal boxes from the 70s were preparing us for such an industry as this. Yes, don't forget those cheats. Jim says, ACX seems to be the only job requiring it is. Everything else will go with it. Yes. If you think about it this way, when we're talking about technical requests, like if a client has a specific need for a specific size of a file, IVR is another one, which is phone greetings and like voicemails and things. If you think about where those clients are uploading those to, like Grasshopper, Ring, right? They are servers that hold a bunch of little files of information. ACX is an arm of Audible, basically, right? And that is exactly what's happening there too. They have to have enough room on their servers, or the files have to be in a certain configuration for certain reasons, right? They have to be at a certain sample rate and bit depth so the file is small enough, yet still enough still a decent quality to give the listener an enjoyable experience, but the file is small enough that it doesn't take up too much space on their server. The noise floor factor is set at a certain level, so to ensure that there's no weird background noise in the narration, right? And that every file is consistent sounding in volume, noise, from file to file to file, from book to book to book, quality, right? Now, for most of the other voiceovers, that's really not the case unless, again, specified by the client. So there's technical requests attached to audiobooks because of what they need to do with the file. But to Jim's point, most other voiceovers are not. You just want to make sure that it's between -6 and -3 dB, because that's a nice, good volume, and that there isn't anything audible in the background. So I would still use a light denoise or a denoiser. You don't want anything, no, ambient sounds in the background. Just make sure that nothing is audible in the background and that it's a nice volume. Mouth noise is gone, right? But there aren't any technical requests to most things unless the client asks you for a specific file type, size, right? So there are technical requests attached to ACX work. So yes. Miss Alicia Full? Hi. Hello. Gregory says, I have to say my Isotope NX or RX11 plugin has been the best investment I have ever made, just like discovering the Platinum Group. Thank you, Gregory. I have to say that too. I think the mouth declick in Isotope, probably one of the best investments I've ever made. Hands down. Layla is here. Hello, I'm very late, but I am here. So happy that this topic is being discussed. I have a question about scripts. What to do when script has incorrect English? I guess it depends on what is incorrect. If it's just complete word salad and it makes no sense at all, I would reach out to the client and ask them if they sent me the final draft. Because I'm hoping at that point they would go, oh, poop, I think I sent her the wrong version. But if they didn't, there's a good chance that it could be just Google translated. In that case, I would reach out to the client and ask if it was Google translated and if they would like me to rearrange it or rewrite it, touch it up, massage it, however you want to word it, so that it flows better in the English language. That would be like proofing or however you want to word it, but that is an extra fee. So make sure that you're adding that in. That's what I would do. Lele says to Tanya, I am in one of the Facebook groups for audio narration or something like that. I just read a very similar question. It turns out a lot of VOs received that email, likely a scam. Gregory says to Dylan, well done, young man. Fenn says, sounds to me like they are wanting more for AI. You mean going back to what I was saying before about just nonsensical scripts? I don't see as many of those anymore, and I see more and more clients that will actually tell you up front if it's for machine learning or something like that, and which is nice. They're not trying to be covert about it anymore. And at that point, I just say, no, I don't participate in machine learning or I don't want someone to have use of my voice and to do God knows what with it. I'm just not, I don't want to do that. Lisa says to Old Dog, I'm still working on my first book, 12 short horror stories, and I'm just freaking out that I'm just not doing this right. Stop it. Stop it. Just keep going. Stop freaking yourself out. Stop overthinking. Getting to the end of it, my brain hurts. First books are always scary. They're intimidating. They're scary. Just focus on creating a great horror stories. I mean, what a great first book to start out with. 12 short horror stories? I'd love that. Right? Unless you're not into horror stories, then maybe you shouldn't have accepted that as your first book, but that would be awesome. So just focus on the stories at hand and stop freaking yourself out over nothing. Remember that this is fun. Remember that this is something that you wanted to do. And have fun with it. Have fun. Stop freaking out. Don't allow yourself to freak out. Old Dog New Trick says to Lisa, congrats. I'm at the start, just finished taking notes, but also freaking out. Jim says, if I can get it to click, yes, traditional medicinals makes the lozenges. Oh. Alrighty then. I have to go check those out. Jim says, I went to Lenny B for EQ. He has a $40 video on EQ for beginners. Tim Tippett also has a full Adobe Audition course on his website, which is votechguru.com. I believe it's votechguru, TECH guru, votechguru. But you can find a lot of great information about the different DAWs, different kinds of effects, how they affect your voice. You can learn a lot on YouTube. There's a lot of voice artists, audio engineers that have videos content on YouTube that go over all these things, and you can sort of put something together yourself until you're able to hire someone to help you in that respect. Masonry Construction says to Slacker Dan, the internet slacker, if you're just getting started, I highly recommend the Samson Q2U mic USB plugin. About $60 new. Have made thousands of bucks with it. Enter Caesar. Hi, Caesar. Dynamic mics for singing is a gross generalization. Many dynamics are great for broadcast purposes, and at least one is excellent for voiceover, which is the Electro Voice RE20. Not quite late. Been here since the beginning. I'm just sick as a dog and burning up with fever. Oh, Caesar. Regardless if that counts as late, I brought 5 donuts and 2 small pickles. I'll take the pickles. I like spicy pickles. Jim says ACX's Audio Lab requires an MP3, so I just give the RH an MP3. It should be an MP3 anyway, because that is the technical requirement for ACX. Your ACX auditions should be ACX compliant, which includes it being an MP3. Caesar says anything that's mixed with music or ambient effects doesn't generally have a noise floor requirement. Despite that, you still want to keep recordings as clean as compression processing raises noise floor. Katya says, regarding the throat coat lozenges question in this panel, I toggle between Pine Bros Softish Throat Drops, sugar-free, and Thayer's Slippery Elm. Both great, but staying hydrated with water is best. I have, the only lozenges I've tried are these Vocal Zone pastilles. I mean, I've tried a couple. I mean, when I said I tried everything, I mean, sprays, I mean, the whole thing. So I found that the mouth declick effect was the best thing that I could have done. But these are okay. They help. It says it helps keep the voice clear. I mean, I think they work okay, but they didn't completely, eliminate mouth noise or anything like that, but they sort of soothe the throat a bit. Fen says that was in regards to those saying RHs were asking for longer auditions, particularly the one who was sad about not getting longer auditions because narrators are afraid of AI. I mean, that's a completely justified statement too, because we are. But really, again, they could get your voice from really anywhere, not just an audition. But I don't think it's necessary to send in a 5-minute audition if the rights holder is only going to listen to 30 seconds of it. In most cases, I mean, there could be some authors that want longer, but are they going to listen to? I don't know. I just stick with 2 to 3 minutes. I've never had an author tell me that they wanted one that was longer. And if they wanted to hear more or a different section, then they would just say, "Here, read this section too," or something to that effect. Lisa says, "I love the horror stories. I am also having so much fun with these short horror stories, spin-offs on Saturday morning cartoons. How cool is that? You're definitely going to have to tell us when you're done and tell us what it's called so we can all go buy it." So right up my alley. Yes, just need to relax and enjoy the ride. Exactly. For those of you that are overthinking, panicking, stressing, terrified of either auditioning or starting your first book, remember your why. Remember why you started doing this in the first place. You remember how I'm always saying that you have to have a strong why to do this business, because that why is going to help you get through situations like this. When something difficult happens, a client says, "You're the worst thing in the world," which I've never had a client say that, but I mean, you never know. Some people are just not nice. Let's just say something unsavory happens, or you're freaking out about something, or whatever it is. Go back to your why you wanted to do this in the first place. Is it to spend more time with family? Is it to be, to create your own schedule and to be financially free at some point? Is it because you just love telling stories? I mean, what is it? What's your why? Go back to that. Do a little woo-saw, meditate, and then get back in the studio and finish that book. Or at least get started, right? Caesar says, "Forgot to mention that I did answer the poll, and that is tone and pace. I have a default tone and pace and stick to that unless rights holder instructs otherwise. And often they don't have tone pace instructions." Yeah, I think we discovered that in our platinum group not too long ago when you were reading something. But I think the majority of what you've done up to that point had been in that tone or pace. That's like your default. That's your money voice. So that's understandable if that's like your default, because if that's what you're hired for the most, that could be just your default narrator voice. And I get it, because that's your money voice. But sometimes if you want to break or step outside of that and try something new and perhaps have a secondary money voice, there's nothing wrong with that either. Right? So that's when it requires a little bit of stepping outside the normal box and trying on something new. Okay, heading back to bed. Was just mildly triggered by the dynamic mic comment. Please stay safe, everyone, and hope no one else caught a bug during the Easter weekend. Something's going around. Fen said, "Great advice, Angela. Thank you. As always, welcome." Lisa says, "Get well soon, Caesar." Gregory says, "May the force be with everyone. Onward, my friends." Yes, I'm actually afraid to say it. I spent the weekend in Vegas. I think I dodged any kind of bug bullet, but we'll see. It's only Tuesday. Knock on wood. I was afraid to say it out loud, but we'll see. So far, so good. Caesar. Thank you for the super chat, Caesar, for pickles. I appreciate it. That. Should be enough to buy me a jar of spicy pickles. Like, I like the hot and spicy pickles. Call me weird. That's fine. I don't care. But I love hot and spicy pickles. Not sure how much they cost over there. It's probably about right. It's probably about right. I could get a jar of spicy pickles or perhaps a half a dozen eggs for $6.36. Maybe a gallon and a half of gas. We'll see. But I appreciate you, Caesar. Get some rest, go back to bed. And I'm hoping to see you feeling better on Thursday with our platinum group. But with that, I'm going to sign off for this week. I will be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. I'll put it on the screen here. I'm live every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. I am here on YouTube live with a live chat. So if there's a topic or something you want to talk about, something you want to learn more about and get multiple perspectives on, then please put it in the comments below if you're watching this in team replay, or if you're still in the chat, you can put those in now. Actually, I would probably wait until after so they stay. Put them in the comments. And it could be something that we talk about in a future live chat. So again, I'm trying to give you what you want, so you have to tell me what you want. So with that, I will see everybody next week. And until then, just do it already. Stop overthinking everything. Just get in there and get started. Have a spicy pickle. But I'll see you guys. I'll see my platinum group. I'll see you in a few days. But everybody else, I'll see you next week. Bye.